Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for this D-Zone Fireside Chat on generative AI, advancing the next level with intelligent data engineering, sponsored by Informatica. I'm thrilled to be here today to dive deep into a topic that's been causing waves across all industries, generative AI. This technology is quickly becoming a pivotal competitive advantage for enterprises everywhere, and with the rise of generative AI and large language models, the possibilities are endless. However, the key to their success lies in robust data engineering practices that ensure high quality, governed, and trusted data at scale. Today, we'll uncover the critical role of data engineering in this equation and discuss best practices and practical ways you can jumpstart your generative AI projects and ensure their success. My name is Jesse. I'm the Chief Technologist here at D-Zone, and I'm super excited to have with us today Abhilash Mula, Senior Product Manager at Informatica, who's an expert in the field of data engineering and its intersection with generative AI. If you find today's chat valuable, we want you to explore more exciting on-demand events just like this, so head on over to dzone.com/events where you can see all of our on-demand content. Now, if you have questions throughout our discussion today, please type them in the chat and we'll be answering those in real time. Now, before we get to our questions, I want to set the stage just a little bit, Abhilash. Generative AI is not a new concept. It's been around actually for quite a long time, right? But some things happened just like in the last year. Even though it's been on the horizon for a while, the practical, tangible impact of people going out and using it and, to change their companies and their day-to-day workflows, that's not even barely been around a year, right?
That's right.
And now that we've got this thing in our hand, we want to start off by understanding the landscape a little bit. Like, given the recent and very steep rise of generative AI in the industry, how critical would you say it could possibly be for the overall success of an enterprise nowadays?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me, Jesse, on this fireside chat. To your question, how critical is artificial intelligence for the overall success of any enterprise? I think the short answer is it depends, right? The criticality of AI for the overall success of any enterprise can depend on the specific industry or the specific use case or even the organization's strategic goals, right? But like you said, we have seen AI has become like a key component in the past years for many reasons, and I'll cover some of the key reasons, right? One, it gives a competitive advantage, right? So AI can provide a significant competitive advantage by automating processes within the organization and optimize operations. It can enable data-driven decision making, and enterprises that effectively implement AI can always outperform their competition, right? Improved efficiency. AI can automate routine tasks like freeing up human resources. If there's any routine task, AI can automate those things, and freeing up human resources not only save costs, but you can use these people for more high value activities. You can make them more productive. And the third point is like data driven insights, right? So AI can analyze large volumes of data, and when you analyze large volumes of historical data, you can get better insights into trends, and and processing large volumes of data is something that you cannot achieve using the traditional analytics. That's something AI can do, right? So by analyzing this large amounts of data, enterprises can take strategic decisions and better business planning as well, right? One key thing for any enterprise is customer satisfaction, right? Giving the customer experience. In the past years, you have seen things like AI-powered chatbots, personalization, and their recommendation systems, and all of these things are built to give the better customer experience, right? And any enterprise that prioritizes customer satisfaction, they're like the pattern that we see is they are often leveraging AI so they can provide better services for their customers. Innovation, AI can assist in innovation, accelerating research and development so they can build better products, better technologies. And market insights, I think I covered this in the competitive advantage, but again, analyzing these large amounts of data using AI you can get better insights. You can look at the market trends, consumer behavior, and which helps a lot of these companies to stay ahead of the competition.
Yeah,
So
and it's a lot different than it used to be. Like I remember master data management and copying files and trying to get, all of our data in one spot. And now we don't have to worry about that. We can analyze it where it is, right? But then the whole birth, I remember when big data was a big term, right? We don't hardly use that term anymore, right? But you and I have been around for a while. And as we got into big data, we started talking about, oh, we're going to process gigabytes and terabytes. Now we're up into exabytes and petabytes and zettabytes. Everything that we know is growing. So this idea of how do we process? We've gone from our typical analytics tools like a BI type queryable business tool into something we need help. And so that's what you're saying, where AI comes in as a tool to the humans to make us more productive. And I don't want to skip over the human element. You said, it's gonna. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounded like you were saying it's both disruptive technology and destructive. Some jobs are going to be replaced, right? So, and I don't know if you were talking about like communications. I know a lot of people are starting to see messaging and any of the wordsmithing types of jobs start to go down in the industry. So I don't know if you were talking about that or more on the engineering side, but it's definitely a tool that's out there.
yeah, I mean, the way I see it is it's not going to replace humans, but definitely it's going to make humans more and more productive is how I see this technology evolving.
Okay. And we'll get that. I want you to hold that thought because
Yeah.
I want to know about the futures. Do you think it ever will get there? And y'all stay tuned. We'll answer that here in just a few minutes. But I want to talk about how we're having issues, right? What are the challenges that you see that kind of derail AI/ML initiatives? And we're not going to get into whether AI is really AI or not, no Turing tests and that. So we're just going to assume that it's AI. But as companies are starting to use this internally, not just like a chat GPT, but building it in to things like, what do you see some of the challenges that they're having?
So first of all, AI and ML initiatives, they have like tremendous potential, right? But yeah, obviously, like any initiative, it has its own challenges.
Mm,
In successfully implementing it, right?
yeah.
Some of the major challenges that we see is first thing is lack of clear strategy, right? I mean, any initiative, whether it's AI ML or or any other project, and if you don't have a clear strategic vision, these projects can fail, right? So that's why it's very important for this AI ML projects to be aligned with a broader business objectives. So that's key. The second thing that we see that can derail is lack of clear use cases. So
Mm,
oftentimes you have a problem and you think AI ML can solve it. No, I mean you don't necessarily start with AI ML, right? So you have to identify the suitable use cases that AI ML can solve. Otherwise, the applications may struggle, or enterprises can struggle to gain traction on these projects, right?
yeah.
The other thing is, the data itself, right? The quality of data and the availability of the data itself, right? And
Mm,
as you know, AI and ML projects or these algorithms, they rely heavily on data, right? And poor quality and insufficient data can lead to inaccurate results. So that's why it's very important to have clean data, relevant data, and and this data should be accessible. Otherwise, it can pose a significant challenge in this AI ML initiatives. Um, other challenge that we see is the cost and ROI, right? So
mm,
implementing any AI ML project can be expensive. So most organizations, they do not see that immediate return of investment as soon as they start the project. So
yeah.
companies often try to struggle justifying the costs, but if you keep it running, I mean, there are obviously tangible benefits, right? But
Mhm.
don't expect as a immediate ROI on this project. So
You
that's
heard him. Don't give up.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
value in there, right? But it does take a certain amount of investments. What you're getting at, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Infrastructure is another big thing. I
Mm,
know cloud, you have unlimited scalability and everything, but then, it comes with a cost, right? So, scaling AI ML initiatives is a big task because you need large volumes of data to train this model. So that's why
yeah.
it's always important to have budgeting and adequate computing power and infrastructure available, right? And then last not but the least, but the maintenance of the model itself. I mean, it's not like you build an application, generative AI model, and you productionalize it and fire and forget, right? It has
What? Why? Why? I thought that's how it's supposed to be.
so I mean, if you leave these models up and running without any maintenance, they can be biased, right, based on how the models are built, right? So over a period of time, these models can degrade, and the data distributions can change, and there's no fairness in what the model is predicting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why updating the models and maintenance is key. Otherwise, it can derail the AI/ML project itself. So again, to summarize, have a clear strategy, define the use cases. Data is the most key, and there's a cost, but the ROI is larger. The benefits are bigger as you scale these projects. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I love the idea of it's infinite scalable hardware. That's great if you have an infinitely scalable budget. From all the
right.
talks we have, you leave, some Amazon systems up and forget about them, you're going to get a bill, right? So, and when we talk about the challenges, which there's definitely a lot of those, that's part of the game of innovation, though, right? I mean, we talked about innovation earlier, and as AI is this new thing that within the last year has become so important for companies to understand and get right. If we're going to innovate, there's always been investment on the research and development side. So this is just another investment project. As we've gone through the years, though, in development, and we've talked about it with some certainty in some other areas, but developers are getting way overworked on the development side, and we have to fight to do the innovation, right? Because of the ROI. It's the same equation. You got to invest if you want to get the innovation. So I love that. And want to think about foundations here. What role, because we want to pull data engineering into this. We're talking about large language models and all that. So I want to pull that into conversation. But what role does data engineering play in the generative AI success equation? And how would you differentiate it from more traditional data management practices?
Sure. So data engineering, I think it plays a very crucial role in the success of generative AI. I mean, if you take a look at things like neural networks, I won't go too deep into the generative AI, but take a look at if you look at neural networks, which is the foundation for natural language generation and image generation.
Mhm.
Data engineering plays a very crucial role there, right? So again, the role of data engineering in generative AI is definitely different from the traditional data management practices, and I'll tell you why, right? So one of the foundation for data engineering, or for the success of AI/ML, is data preparation, right? You have to prepare the data for training. So if you look at generative AI, the quality and the quantity of data that you have to use for generative AI is enormous. Like you said, it's not megabytes, gigabytes, right? You're dealing
Not
with
anymore.
exabytes of data, right? And these data engineers are responsible for collecting this data, cleaning the data, transforming it into a format that's suitable for this generative AI models. Now, how does this differentiate from the traditional data management approach? So in generative AI, data engineers are often dealing with very complex data structures, like semi-structured or even unstructured data types, like
Mhm.
images, like large volumes of text data, right? That is NLP, or audio data, or video data, and this is something we haven't dealt in the traditional data management practices. So data engineers are altogether dealing with a new set of data for data preparation, and to train these models, right? And how other point how data engineering is a different in generative AI compared to traditional is the data sources, right?
Mm.
So again, generative AI often requires this specialized data source, like I said, large image data sets, and these data engineers have to identify these data sources which are not readily available. And
Mm.
if you look at the traditional data management approach, yeah, data is stored in Oracle, some CRM. It's very easy to access, but
Yeah.
accessing these data sets is totally different here, in generative AI.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm a traditional data guy, right?
mhm.
The way you're talking, I'm thinking, oh, I know how to store that. It's in a blob, it's in a clob, in a semi-relational database. But we're talking about not just storing these things, but processing them in
Yep.
their entirety. And that is something that just is new
Mhm.
in terms on this generative AI. They process what's in it and
Mhm.
then what it means behind it. And there's all these layers. And I think that's what you're saying. These data engineers are not managing an Oracle or a SQL Server database anymore,
All right.
right?
This
Very unstructured files, weird ways of storing it. So I think it's a really interesting point I wanted to highlight is that if you're watching this and you're a traditional data person like I am, for lack of a better term, this is understanding how these models work. We got to really pay attention to Appalachian today. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there.
right. So another area where we see is, the data streaming and real-time data, right? So if you look at some generative AI
Mm,
applications, data engineering is evolving to handle this real-time or streaming data sources. For example, live video feeds or live social media streams, right? You want to quickly know the sentiment of the
yeah,
customer, what they're tweeting about it. So again, data engineers are accessing, this data in real time, which is very uncommon in the traditional data management practice, right? You are dealing with, batch processing. You can report on what happened in the previous day, but
store it for later. Yeah,
so yeah, and scalability, right? And in the traditional data management approach, you can, you know, uh, figure out how much volume you are processing. You
mm,
can anticipate how much data is going to grow in the next 1 year, right? It's easy to anticipate, but with generative AI models, you need the data volumes are again huge. You need scalability. Data engineers need to design the pipelines in such a way they can handle these volumes. At any given point in time, the data engineers need to make sure the data they are processing needs to match to the computer requirements or the other way, right?
yeah,
So
it's a good point.
scalability is another thing. So again, there are many factors. Data engineering in the context of generative AI is very, very specialized and definitely differs from the traditional data management approach in terms of data
Very different.
types, processing techniques, and many more.
That's awesome. So no doubt these are game changers, right? Both generative AI, large language, these models, how we manage all that. How do you see or envision generative AI like reshaping data engineering practices in general, especially as we go forward?
Sure. So generative AI, we are using data engineering practices to train or prepare the data for training the
Right.
models, right? But generative AI in itself is also transforming the engineering practices, like how we process the data. Like
Yeah.
for example, data augmentation is key, right? Like if I'm trying to train a model, the data it's not simple to get the data that I want to train the model with, right?
Mm,
So using generative
point.
AI, I can always create some synthetic data that can closely resemble to the actual data, and then I can use that for training the model. Because getting the data, actual data, is always costly or challenging. So that's one way to use generative AI to create
Right.
the synthetic data. You can always use data generative AI for data pre-processing. I mean, traditionally we used to
Mm,
build ETL pipelines and do this data processing, but
yes.
now with chat gpt and all of these things, you can automate your code, create all these pre-processing techniques on the fly, right? And I will talk more about how Informatica does it, but as developers are building these pipelines, we can actually predict what the developer is going to do next and help him pre-process the data ahead of time.
We've been
So,
talking about predictive analytics and metrics for 20 years.
so
Now we're predicting behaviors. Okay. So we're getting there. The future is now.
yeah, other thing is, data quality is key. Like I mentioned earlier,
Mm,
generative AI can help in, generating test cases, synthetic data for stress testing, and it can identify outliers in the data, right? It can identify data quality issues, aiding, to make sure, the quality. You can improve the quality assurance processes of the data pipeline itself,
gotcha.
right? And then there is AI assisted data engineering as well. Like, there are some repetitive tasks that a data engineer does. Like, for example, I used to be data engineer. I used to spend hours and hours, tuning a data pipeline. uh,
Awesome.
and it's just a repetitive task, right? And
Yeah.
and generative AI can help you with these tasks where you can automate, performance tuning, or
Mhm.
have more scalable infrastructure, easily, build your data pipelines and
Yeah.
things. So there is AI assisted data engineering as well. So again, as generative AI technologies continue to advance, I think data engineering practices will adapt to these generative AI techniques, and improve the data engineering, uh, 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 make sure data engineering is more effective, and it's responsible.
That's fantastic. And since you were a data engineer, and I was a normal engineer, as we're figuring out how, I mean, it's fascinating to watch engineering trends nowadays, right? I tell people, I have a 20-year-old coder now in DevOps and doing it's completely different than it was 20 years ago, right? So if we can go into story mode for just a second, can you give us some of the latest trends and maybe some notable use cases that you've come across in recent years?
Absolutely. So data engineering, like you said, it's a very dynamic field. It has evolved in the past few years, right? Um, One of the emerging use cases that we see, and I think we touched in the previous question as well, is the real-time data processing. So many companies are increasingly adopting this real-time data processing to make those immediate and data-driven decisions, right? And use cases can include something like, real-time analytics, or it can do, fraud detection, or
Mm,
IoT data processing, or maybe more, context-based recommendations, right? So for all of these use cases, we are seeing an increase in real-time data processing, and that's an emerging trend that we see.
oh, wow.
Uh, Another trend that we see is, you might have heard the word lakehouse, data lakes, cloud data,
Oh, the data lake house.
the
Oh
lake
yeah,
house.
we've talked about lake houses, data warehouses, data lakes, and how
Yeah,
it's hilarious. If you've been in data for as long as we have, we hear all of it.
right.
I want to do a show just on with people who've been in the industry for 20 years, just how we're renaming things. I think
Yes.
that would be fantastic. But yes, the data lake house. Yeah, continue.
So data lakes and data mesh architecture, right? So data lakes, when they are implemented with a data mesh architecture, and this is one of the emerging trend that we see, right? It's very popular in the market. And companies that are implementing data lakes using the data mesh architecture, they're able to manage and democratize data more effectively, right?
Yeah,
And this approach, or this architecture, emphasizes more on data ownership, the domain oriented team terms,
yeah,
and makes you think like data as a product. And that's what,
yeah,
and this is an emerging trend that we see, right? um, Data quality and governance, I mean, it's been there for years, but it is getting more and more traction. And again, that's one of the trend we see in the data engineering side. Again, it's just not about building data pipelines, but it's
mm,
about to make sure it is governed properly, so that
right.
people can track lineage. People can look at how the data is flowing from point A to point B all the way to analytics. So the whole thing about this data quality frameworks, data lineage, tracking, cataloging are become a high importance in the data engineering practices. Another trend we see is, I mean, the data engineering word itself has, as companies started moving to cloud, it has become cloud native data engineering, right? uh,
Of course, of course, we're
so
gonna put it all together.
yeah, cloud native data engineering. So there's a big shift. Companies are moving to cloud. They are managing their data infrastructure to cloud platforms, whether it's AWS, Azure, GCP, so they can take advantage of the scalability
Mhm.
and managed services. So again, that's another trend we see, people moving to cloud. One other trend that we commonly see is serverless data pipelines. Serverless architectures have become very prominent recently because data engineers want to focus on building the data pipelines. I think that's where they should spend their most of the time,
Yeah,
rather than worrying about the underlying infrastructure. And that's what serverless architectures provide them. They can offer automatic scaling, it's cost efficient, and it's easy to deploy their pipeline. So serverless is another emerging trend that we see. There are other things like, data monetization. We hear things like data sharing. So, most organizations, what we see are looking at data as a currency, like, it has some value, right?
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah, companies are looking at a way to monetize the data. So there's a practice in data engineering where they are, creating or preparing these data sets for external partners. They
Oh
are
yeah.
creating data products. They are creating, data marketplaces. So this way companies are, monetizing on the data. So again, this is another emerging trend that we see on data sharing. So again, these are some of the trends and use cases that we see, and a lot of focus on real-time processing, cloud governance, data privacy, and data
There's a
monetization.
lot. It's touching everything.
Yes.
But I do want to take a couple of minutes. Right, I told you before we got started here. I've been using Informatica for a long time. Fan of Power Center, back in the day. We want to talk about their data engineering solution. So, how is Informatica's or your data engineering solution helping organizations kick off or get started with generative AI projects? I think that'll be helpful for people to understand as they get up and running in the space.
Yes, absolutely. So Informatica, we have grown since the Power Center ages, right? So we
A
provide
little
a
bit. It's been a while. Y'all are doing great. Yeah.
so Informatica provides a comprehensive end-to-end data management platform. So we are no more just a ETL tool. We are like
Yep.
end-to-end data management platform. And IDMC, or the Intelligent Data Management Cloud,
Mm,
our flagship cloud product, it pretty much meets any data engineering capability that you look for, right? Whether it's building the data pipelines, orchestrating, operationalizing ML pipelines, we provide that. We have many services within IDMC
mm,
that can do beyond data engineering, and all of this is done through a lot of automation. So it's branded around this our Claire, which is like a metadata driven AI technology behind the scenes. So we try to simplify a lot of things for the data engineers through IDMC, right? So if I have to summarize like some of the
yeah.
key functionalities that we support through IDMC for data engineering are, you can quickly replicate and ingest virtually any data of any pattern or any scale. And whether you are a, hand code user, or you are a low code user, you like dragging and dropping things, this IDMC platform can, work with any user, right? So this is a platform that's built for any user.
That's great.
It's not only just building the data pipelines, but again, whether you want to do file-based ingestion or streaming, or you
Mm,
want to get data in real time, which is a change data capture, we offer all of that functionality through our IDMC platform. So you can pretty much jumpstart any data engineering or data science project and operationalize those end-to-end pipelines or even AI ML models through our IDMC platform. And we support all of the architecture patterns as well. Again, whether companies try to implement data fabric or data mesh or lakehouse architecture, we are agnostic. We support all of those architectures.
and drag and drop, which is what I like.
Yeah.
So, and I know you guys have been innovating, like I said, long way from just the Power Center days, right? And that was a cool product for it today too. I mean, it's great. But could you share a little bit about recent breakthroughs that y'all are having in data engineering?
Sure. Yeah. So we did a lot of innovation in the past years, right? So recently at Informatica World in May, we announced our generative AI application, which is called Clear GPT, right?
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Clear GPT can help you do data engineering tasks much simple, faster, and it can automate a lot of things, right? So
Now,
that's
is that the thing that's going to predict what I need to do next and guide me the right way?
that's already there, but this can do more than that.
Perfect. Okay, cool. I need all the help I can get.
Absolutely. So we are also launching a Claire AI Copilot. So this is what you were mentioning earlier. Like it
Yeah,
can take the next transformation, what function you want to write,
awesome.
the AI Copilot can actually do all of that, right? So those are some of the innovations. And we also launched um, other products in our cloud data management that can power any user. For example, if you're a business analyst, we have launched something called Informatica Data Loader. It's probably it's the industry's first no cost. It's actually free to use, and it's zero code and zero DevOps, and it's a full SaaS offering, right?
Oh,
So
cool.
that's something we have launched last year. And we talked about a lot about drag and drop, right?
Yeah.
No code users. But recent, like, in the past years, we started embracing, people who can code as well. So we have
Mm.
exposed a lot of our functionality, the power of IDMC through Python APIs, or in fact, any programming
Oh,
language,
that's great. Yeah.
right? So we have something called InfoCore, where we are bringing in the low-code users as well, and they can use the power of our data quality transformation, unstructured data, and they can use their favorite language and IDE. They don't have to drag and drop things. So InfoCore is something we launched. We also launched Model Serve, which is a way to operationalize ML models. You can bring in pretty much any ML model, operationalize it, expose as a REST endpoint, and you can embed that into any application. And last not but the least, but I also want to mention, we at the beginning of the chat, we touched on the cloud cost,
Yeah.
right? So
Expensive.
we recently enhanced our cloud data integration product by applying some FinOps principles. So if you look at any cloud vendor, there are so many infrastructure choices available. It's very hard to figure out which is the best one for my performance, and also you need to look at the cost angle as well. So weighing the cost and performance, what is the right infrastructure that I need to use? So we have built some AI models behind the scenes where we can predict what infrastructure is best for you based on cost and performance, and based on the data that you're processing to the source and target, right? So
Yeah.
again, a lot built on this FinOps principles. You can actually smartly process your data as well. You can execute your data.
That's cool. That's really cool. All right. So we've got just a couple minutes left, but I want to hit a couple of things. So if we can, give us a customer story. I don't know if you can name the customer or not, but just share with us a little bit a real world scenario where Informatica helped fortify data engineering foundations for someone. And then we'll get one last question, which I always like.
Absolutely. One customer case study that I can, publicly say is Paycor, right? So Paycor is one of our customers. They provide actually a HR platform that modernizes people management from recruiting,
That's cool.
onboarding, and payroll, right? So their goal was to deliver an end-to-end analytics platform for the business where they can consistently report on what's happening, what kind of billing services they are providing to their customers, and all of this needs to happen in a timely fashion, and data quality was the utmost importance to them, right?
Yeah.
Any change in the business process, there's regulatory compliance that kicks in, right? So they have to make sure data
Good
quality
deal. Yeah.
of data is key. So Paycor goal was to actually have this end-to-end platform, but also make sure take care of this regulatory compliance things as well. So they leveraged our IDMC platform, and by using IDMC, they were able to deliver the data 4 times faster compared to what they were previously using. And using our Clear AI powered platform, I talked about improving the developer productivity. They were able to free up 4 full-time employees. I mean, they were doing other
That's
activities.
ROI.
Yeah. So they were actually working on other initiatives rather than doing the tasks that's not important for the business, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and using our data quality product, they were able to get the metrics, data quality metrics, accuracy, and they made sure that the data is more complete, so they can do more accurate billing analysis to their end clients. So Paycor is one story that just quickly comes to my mind, but there are many, many other stories.
That's awesome. All right. So last question as we're wrapping up. We've got a lot of viewers, I'm sure all of you out there, who may be starting their data engineering efforts. They want to boost analytics, get these AI applications up and off the ground. What if you were to pick just a few pearls of wisdom, some things to leave with them as they're getting started, what would it be?
So, to succeed in any analytics and AI, companies must establish a strong data engineering practice, right? That's very important. And without this data engineering practice, there is no clean data. You cannot trust your data pipeline. So that is very important to establish a data engineering practice. And you need to adopt something like an intelligent data management platform, which has the key data engineering capabilities so you can achieve success. For example, you need data replication, data ingestion is key, change data capture, data ops, ML ops, ELT, data governance. I mean, these are some of the key capabilities, including
Yeah.
data quality. And you need to look at a platform that can provide all of this. And by fully utilizing the value of data, once you have a platform like this, you can fully utilize the value of data. So companies can improve efficiency, reduce cost, and increase productivity. And these, I think, these are some of the must-haves in the current digital economy.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Abhilash, for sharing with us today. It's been great. I really enjoyed our time. I feel like it flew by, but we covered a lot of ground. I feel
Yeah.
like our audience has gained a deeper understanding of the critical role that data engineering plays in the success of all their AI initiatives, and hopefully learned something today. So, our sincere appreciation goes out to Informatica for sponsoring, and to our wonderful audience, all of you out there for tuning in. For those of you who want to share this talk with others, go over to dzone.com/events. You can see all of our on-demand content. And if you would, please stay with us just a minute. Um, we want you to fill out a feedback survey because we're always looking to improve and do better. So thanks again for spending time with us today. We will see you next time.